These thoughts up in my head, things I never did. I took some L's, but I'm still here.
I got these thoughts up in my head. I toss and turn about some things I never said. I got regrets about some things I never did. I took some risks and took some L's, but I'm still here. And I know.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Overthinking Thoughts Pod. I am your host, Ed, and as always, journey with me as we are pursuing greatness in a world full of chaos. And hopefully, your week wasn't chaotic. Hope that you found some victory and some joy throughout the week. Hope that you found some small wins, and I just pray that things are just going well for you. If you're going through a rough patch, just remember that these things don't last forever, and we just keep pursuing greatness and keep trying our best every single day that we're on this earth. And things will, if you give 100% effort, it's all gonna fall into place. But I hope your week is well. Obviously, my week last week was wild, but this week is better. We're doing okay. Right about an 8, I would say. 8 out of 10. That's really good. Uh, yeah, nothing crazy. um, just work and raising these kids. That's about it. Let me think. Small victories, small victories, small victories, small wins. Well, a couple. I might have mentioned this before, but my oldest son, he is doing student council. And what's really cool is that he's really into it. So it's something different from the typical I want to go play basketball or I want to go play soccer and hang out with the friends. Like he's really bought into it. So it's kind of cool to watch him engage in that setting and I really think that he enjoys what he's doing. So that makes me happy. And then of course my youngest one, the menace, he's not really a menace, but he just throws everything everywhere. He does this thing where we'll feed him, and if he doesn't like it, he'll like pick the food up and then he'll just take it off the tray and just throw it. Like, I don't know. He's got a really good arm to be one, so we'll be seeing where that can take him. But outside of that, he's doing well. He's starting to like try to talk to us a little bit more. So it's crazy because you see videos like when we first brought him home and he's first born and how he would just kind of observe and lay there. But now he's like observing and actually going after things and walking all over the place. It's a beautiful thing. I'm very blessed to be a father. So that's my small win. Just being a dad and watching my sons, pursue the things that they want to do. It's really cool. So in the same breath, it's interesting because that kind of relates to what we're going to talk about today. So this episode is called Finding Self, and it is a story about me really now trying to identify who I am as a person. And that sounds crazy at this old age of mine, which I will not disclose. But it's never too late to discover who you are, and sometimes there's certain times where you're gonna have to redirect the path that you're on, and it's going to cause some self-reflection and as some journeys and taking time to really understand who you are. But in this episode of Finding Self, I'm going to be talking about a decision I had to make that was going to benefit my family, that was also going to make me, well, has made me really focus on who I am as a person. So if you haven't caught on by now, you probably know that I'm a huge basketball fan. And one of the goals in life, like, well, I figured as senior year in college there was no NBA dream coming, and I really wasn't attracted to the overseas thing at the moment. It didn't quite, I don't know, I just felt like once I got to my senior year of college ball, I was just like, I think this might be it. But I knew I still wanted to contribute to the game, so coaching was something I looked into, and I had an opportunity and I was going to try to force it, but it wasn't going to work with a job that I had and having to get back and forth. I was going to have to drive across town, but it was something I wanted and it was mine. But then I realized like it wasn't meant for me. But when I had switched professions back in 2016, I was working at a high school and I got a great opportunity to join the staff as an assistant coach for junior varsity basketball. And that whole year, all I did was just kind of sit back and take notes on what I would do if I were a head coach. So I looked at the positives, I looked at the negatives, I looked at things that I would add, and I looked at, player progression and skill sets and things that we would use, because obviously in most programs in high schools the JV is going to do what the varsity does, but I wanted them to compete so much so that they would challenge varsity. And if there's any former varsity players, they know that my players would challenge. Now it's meant for varsity to dominate, but it's also meant for JV to catch them, catch them slacking a few times, which did happen. um but it was fun to watch. So, as a coach, I was able to watch players go to state championships. I think there's a couple of moments of where we had games that were really close, and we're hitting last second shots and buzzer beaters. And my favorite shot of all time is by a student that we had. We'll just call him X. He knows who he is, but he that whole week I kept telling him he had to step up, and we were down, I think, 2 points, like 6 seconds, and the team was at the line, and they missed both foul shots. And he got the rebound. He took one dribble and shot it from the opposite side of the court from the foul line. And I was like, as the ball was in the air, I was thinking of all the stuff I was gonna say as a coach, as to how to be prepared and all this other stuff. But he made it. Changed my whole perspective. Also made me realize that you should never give up on a player. Not that I would ever give up on any of my players, but always push them, because the encouragement, like, you can discipline, but you also got to encourage, because somewhere in there, when he made that shot, I remember he walked straight up. When we walked in the locker room, I walked up to him, I just hugged him, and he looked at me and he was like, "You told me to step up. You told me it was my time." And I took that. And like, from that point forward, we really watched him grow, so much so that him and all the players that I had ever had on JV that I coached were able to win the state championship. That's one of the coolest things of coaching, is watching players go from trying to figure out where they are, trying to understand, like, the game and working together, and then getting to the point of, hey, what we're doing here in JV is preparing you for what you're going to see in varsity, and it's going to put you at that level of where you can achieve state championship status. And they got that. And the school's great because they've made a lot of appearances, and we got some good players that have come through the pipeline, and I've been able to see it. But in the same breath, I had some choices I had to make, because the birth of my son, grad school, I got promoted. A lot of stuff was happening all at once. And in the beginning, there was a warning sign that came up, but it came in a way of which I deflected it. I had all planned out. I was in this new position, and I got approached by somebody that was like, "Oh, I see you're still coaching." I'm like, "Yeah, for sure. Like, that's what I love to do." And they were like, "Nah, you can't. You can't. Like, you just can't." Okay, first, who who you talking to, right? Like, that was my first thought. And to that person, I respect that person. I do. I have a lot of respect for what they do, and also how they helped me throughout my profession, for sure. But at the same time, I was just like, how, what? But then as we work through things, and people know, like, that's who I am, and that was my support, and it helps me, right? Like, then it was like, okay, you know what? That was too much. My bad. Don't let me tell you what to do. If you can handle it, go for it. And that's what I respect about that person. It was a good moment. So as time went on, um, the rigor of the job got crazy. And then that started to spill into personal life, because then you get these practices that end at a certain time, but then you have these moments where you're waiting on kids to get picked up, or there's meetings, or there's, like, maybe somebody got injured, or there's student situations, there's games, there's all these late nights. Mind you, I've got a newborn and a what considered in his mind a teenager, which he's not, but they're at home. And my wife, like, what I had no idea of was, like, here I am coming home with all of this, like, stress and just the pain of the day, because during the day there's all these experiences, and then the basketball like coaching helped me kind of de-stress from it. But then when I got home, I was quickly in the mode of, I don't know why I did that. I was quickly in the mode of, okay, now I'm home. Now I have to process what I have to do tomorrow. And me thinking just being there and rocking my little man to sleep at whatever time. Sometimes I get home, he already be in bed, so I wouldn't even see him. Like I would get up, he'd still be asleep. I see him in the baby monitor, but then when I go home, I wasn't physically like able to embrace him or anything like that. My oldest son, I'd be getting home and he'd be getting ready for bed, and then my wife's there and she's like tired. But I was so oblivious to the signs that when she was saying she was tired, it wasn't that she was tired and she wanted to go to bed. She was just tired of having to do it all by herself. Meanwhile, here I am pursuing something that at the time really made me feel like validated me. But what ended up happening was I realized it became my identity. It was, coaching is something that I do, but it's not who I am. And I got so deep into it because the job was giving me a different type of stress that I had never experienced before. And then the coaching was giving me something that made me feel like I'm still good at what I do. But then it was impacting being a father, being a husband, being present, being a leader. It had all these different things that were going on. And there was a moment where I know that I needed to kind of like step back, but I just kept pushing. I kept pushing. I kept pushing. And so a lot of things changed. Mm, Quietly, what most people don't know is the stress was getting so bad that like people thought that I was, because I was coaching, they're like, oh man, you look like you're in shape, man. You done lost some weight. Like that stress. Stress was dropping my weight. And I'm not like, I mean, I've gained some pounds over the years, but also like it's visible and people were seeing it and I was trying to deny it and I kept feeling like I just had to go through. And this, I mean, there were just situations that I'm not going to get into where there was just a lot that was happening all at once, and trying to balance it when you're trying to hold something together, it was a lot. It was a lot. But then I was faced with the reality. So long story short, the varsity team had another state appearance, which was wonderful, and they're a great team. And I expect, I if y'all watching this, which I know some of you are, I'm expecting you to win it all this year. There's nothing, there's no other exception. Here's what I'm trying to say. Outside of that, and relating to you, once you have a taste of how close you can get to something, you should never settle for less after that. Once you get close, and maybe it wasn't meant for you at that time, it's going to show you the steps you need to take in order to work hard to get there. So y'all know what y'all have to do. So go for it. To my audience that I've never coached before, you know what you're pursuing after in a job or in personal life. So once you get close to it, if it wasn't meant for you then, step back, create your blueprint, build a foundation, and then go for it. That's going to help you achieve the next step. Don't quit on yourself, and never doubt, and understand that just because that door closed at that time, it doesn't mean that another door is not going to open for you. But you just have to stay confident in yourself and persistent, and know that good things will come if you give the maximum effort. Which, if you need motivation on that, go back to the episode listed 100% effort. That'll get you where you need to be. That's a plug. However, I can promote my podcast, I will. But anyway, um, once the season was over, that's when the reality hit, because I love my wife to death. She knows what I love. She knows what keeps me passionate. She also has a way of not, like, in that moment she could have just came right out and said, listen, this is a lot and you need to figure out what's going on. But she would hint at it, but she also was like, I we'll get through, we'll get through. And I saw the wear and tear on her, and then I saw the wear and tear on my kids. And that's when, like, and I've said this a few times in the episode, that's when I realized, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity that coaching had gave me, because I watched a lot of people grow into who they are. I watched them build confidence. I watched them start to believe that this is something they could do. Some of them might be pursuing college ball. Some of them might be pursuing coaching. I don't know, but I what I do know is that they all grew from it, and there's an amazing experience that comes out of that. But in the same breath, when you are at home and you're looking at your family and you have to analyze like what's important and what's happening, you got some decisions to make. And I think the decision to having to choose was so hard because it became my identity. It became who I was. It became it was my moniker. It was like that's who you are. Like this is who you are. This is what you do, but this is like who you are, and you're in that mode all the time. Like even in the profession, like I was never called like what my title was by most students. I was called coach. Like, hey, Coach T, this was happening. So like I was always viewed as that. That was my title. But I have a bigger title to fulfill, and that's the role of leader for my family. And in the midst of that, I was still trying to find a way. Don't get me wrong, because I was like, this is something I love to do. And after some conversation, and respect to everybody I've coached with and the athletic directors, past and present, that were a part of my journey. I love what they do. And it was tough, but I had to step down. And that was a rough it was a rough decision to make because it was something that it's something that like. There is nothing I can't compare it to anything. The excitement of being on the sideline and walking up and down and being a part of close games and crunch time moments and situations, and being able to watch kids grow into a role that they didn't think they could possess. Watching a kid from freshman year go to senior year and be a senior leader. Watching kids who had never felt confident shooting the ball going out there and making plays. Like all those things are so important to me. But at the same time, I was missing my family. You know, there were moments when I was able to have my sons at games in previous years, but because of everything that was happening, they had to be home. So I'm telling them about what was going on, but they weren't able to really share in the success that I had. And that's when it became like it's only benefiting me, but it's doing nothing for my family. And that was a hard pill to swallow. But I had to make that decision. And what I'm learning now is there's this time that I have where I'm able to build with my son and build with my wife and create these family moments that I would miss out on. You know, there's still a small piece of coaching. I get to coach my oldest son and his basketball. It's a little different because you know I can't really do much that I would do on the high school level, and there's reasons for that. But you know, it's still cool to watch him develop. Um, and I get to just step back and be a dad sometimes. Like I don't have to do all of the rigor of planning and coming up with plays and figuring out itineraries and coming up with game plans and monitoring grades and all that. Like I get to just go in, enjoy the sport, go home, be a father. That's where I'm at right now. And the finding of self thing is now is that coaching was what I did, but it's not who I am. And this decision has forced me to do self discovery. It's one of those things that in the moment when I made the choice, I felt like I was giving up on myself, but I knew it was the right thing to do. But I also realized that now it's my time to really find out who I am. The self-discovery thing is so important. And to this day I still remember my therapy appointment when one of the first questions my therapist asked me was like, well, what, well, who are you? And I just start listing off all the stuff that I do. Well, I coach and I do this and I'm this and I'm this and this. And clear as day, that's what you do. It's not who you are. And I think I'm at the point of discovering who I am. And I wanted to bring that up because a lot of us, when we get on the journey, we identify by what we're pursuing. but it's not necessarily who we are. And who we are sometimes can get lost in that shuffle. There's people that chase success so much that once they get that title, that is what they're known as. There's no personal life. There's no I leave work at work and then come home and I'm a parent. Like that's just what they do. And I was in professions where I saw people take the job more serious than their family, and they're missing appointments, and they're missing, recitals, or they're missing like sports games and stuff. And what like that building's still gonna be there. That paycheck will come, but like that after hours stuff, if you're not getting paid after hours, like no disrespect, but what more I got to give you? You told me to work from this time to this time, so I'm gonna give you my all between that time. And there might be days where I got to stay a little later, but if my kids got something to do, it's giving me the opportunity to go see that. And I think along your journey as you're pursuing this, you have to remember, yes, there's going to be times where you're going to have to push towards your goal, and there may be some sacrifices you have to make, but never forget the people that were supporting you before that dream even started. Never forget the people that believed in you before the dream started, and never forget the people that are watching you because you are an inspiration to them. And how you conduct yourself on this journey is how they're going to remember you. They're not going to remember the title. They're not going to remember the money. They're not going to remember the accolades. They're going to remember who you are, your character, and how you carried yourself. So, best believe you got to be on your best behavior. It's great to pursue your dream, but don't let the dream become you. So much so that everybody gets blocked off, and then you're standing up here all by yourself. There's people that do that, and there's people that'll tell you, like, yeah, you got to step over others and get here and do this and do that. That's your identity now. I'm better than you, so I'm gonna step on you, forgetting the help that you had, forgetting the people that truly believed in you. You got a little money and you switched up now. For what? What did you accomplish doing that? Who are you as a person? You can pursue it so much and get so lost in it that once you get there, you might not even remember the main reason why. It's like people who want all the status stuff. They spend all the money on the important things, the cars, the jewelry, and all that. And sure, like I ain't got the money for all that. I am broke. But most people say if you broke, just say that. I'm broke. I got kids. All right. So whatever. I'm working on getting there, but I'm also going to have some dignity and some class as I get there. Because you could chase a life of luxury, which is great, but don't lose the lesson in finding yourself in that whole process. This whole journey that you're on is allowing you to enhance the person of who you are. Job titles, they hold a status, but who you are character wise outside of that job title is the most important thing, because that's who people really see. And that's a lesson that I'm trying to get across to my son now, of just how you carry yourself is so important. And the biggest thing that he'll be able to do that I struggle with was identifying who he is at an early age. I'll admit that once my parents got divorced, I felt like I had to be the man of the house. So I rushed into making decisions that I didn't need to make, thinking that I was grown. And then you get to a point where you look back and realize you grew up too fast, and there's a lot of things that you missed out on. And I admit that that's something that I really fight with. So I'm making sure that my kids don't go through that. And I think the decision of having to step down from being a coach is going to allow me to build with my kid. I'm going to be able to take my son to basketball games, and we're going to be able to watch other players. We're going to be able to see how different programs work. We're going to be able to sit and enjoy those things. Like that is my promise to him. And I'm going to make sure we do that. We're going to look at college games. We're going to look at high school games. We might even look at some pro games. I want him to see all the levels that he's going to be able to experience. And I want to be there with him when it happens. I want to be able to create that memory when it happens, because I never want him to sit and look up and go, oh, my dad was too busy doing this, that he didn't have time for me. And that doesn't sit well with me, to think that he's there. I dropped the ball earlier in the week. I was supposed to take him to go do something, and I got home and I was like, I got time, and I just relaxed. And I ended up missing out on a moment of being able to share with him. And it was devastating then because it affected everybody else. It affected my wife who was overwhelmed with work. It affected my youngest son who was hungry. And had we had went and came back, we would have been able to handle it. It affected my oldest son because he was mad that he couldn't go out and do something and he had his sights set for it. And that's on me. I have to take responsibility for that because I should have been there, right? Lesson learned here in identifying who you are, like learning that there's some decisions you have to make that are going to benefit everybody around you. And it might not be the more popular thing for you, right? Like you might look at it and go, man, it ain't gonna work for me, but it's gonna benefit the people around me. But that decision will then help you on your journey because the people around you, since they're strong, in your moments of weakness, they're going to build you to be strong. It's a weird lesson to learn when you have to step back from something you love because you're like, wow, now what? But I'm in that space right now and I'm still learning. There's still like I get home and I'm like, now what do I do? I was so like busy and caught up that now I get home and my son has his little play spot and I just lay in there and watch him run around and he like climbs and jumps and throws toys and then my oldest son is telling me about stuff he's doing and of course he just got 2K23 so he building teams and creating shoes and coming up with all stuff and doing the challenges and he's talking basketball with me like that's beautiful and my wife just kind of sits back and watches it all and we have these moments where we can laugh and those were moments I missed. And to think if I was still chasing it and forcing something, I would probably grow so distant that when I returned, they wouldn't be there. I can't live with that because I know how that affects kids. I'm still learning from it. I love my parents to death though because they still in the midst of all that found a way to be parents. But in the same breath, there's as the kid in me would have loved to have seen it grow, but the adult in me understands why what happened. And now I'm just learning how to help my kids get better and be a better man for my wife because she need that. She don't deserve having to raise these two kids on her own. You crazy? You know how crazy my boys are? They wild. Yes, son. I'm talking to you. You wild. Because I know you're gonna watch this and you're gonna tell your friends. But it's a good wild. I love you to death. But sometimes you just be all over the place. And that's okay. You're a kid. And as a parent, it's really a joy to be able to sit there and watch it because I can laugh at some of it, I could teach some of it, I can motivate some of it, and we could cultivate all of it into building you to being the best young man that you can be. Because then that's going to translate into being the best adult, the best husband, the best father. And my youngest, who won't understand the words that I'm saying, the same thing's going to happen for you too. And, you know, putting yourself in that position and stepping away from something that you thought you were doing for life. Like my dream was to be a head coach of a high school, and maybe that might still happen. I don't know, but for right now, I'm gonna take time to discover who I am, and I'm good with that. There's a peace and there's a joy that comes with that. I get to watch my kids grow. I get to be a part of their lives. I get to be helpful to my wife in a way of where she knows that hey, I don't have a man that doesn't provide or doesn't do anything for me. I have a man that steps up, that's there and goes out his way to make sure that we're okay. I'm good. That's how I was raised to be. So it would be weird to not pursue that, right? So I'm on my journey of identifying who I am. If you're on the same journey of identifying who you are, take your time, analyze who you are, give thanks to the Lord every day. And more importantly, take it one step at a time. Don't rush this process because it'll be valuable for you in the long run. It was a tough decision. It was the right decision. And so here we go. So hope you got something from it. Man, it's been personal the past couple episodes. I'm gonna have to find something that we could just all laugh and enjoy. But I'm gonna keep giving you content. I'm gonna keep pushing. As always, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Gmail. All spots are Overthinking Thoughts Pod. Like, comment, subscribe, share. If there's something that you want to see on the podcast, hit me up. I'm not hard to find. Reach me on those platforms. Email me if you have to. I want to provide for y'all. I want to give you good content. So here I am. Won't stop. I'm gonna keep going. All right. Remember, as always, I believe in you. Now go believe in yourself. All right. This is Ed, Overthinking Thoughts Pod. We out.